Welcome to the Optimal Bio podcast. At Optimal Bio, we don't just balance your hormones, we balance your whole body. Our conversations range from nutrition to medicine with an emphasis on wellness tips to support your health journey. If you like what you hear, find us on the web at optimalbio.com and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for joining another episode of the Optimal Bio podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have us joined by Brit Duer. She is now the head of our wellness program at Optimal Bio. So thanks for joining us today.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So kind of walk me through, who you are. What is your title? Because there's so many titles in wellness, and we'll start there.
Yes, great question. And thanks for wanting to clarify it. So my name is Brit. Again, I'm a registered dietitian. I actually went back to school to be a registered dietitian, I think in 2015. I don't know, time escapes me at this point. But I also went and got my master's degree. So I have my master's degree in nutrition and exercise physiology. And I got them both at Columbia University. So yeah, as soon as I graduated, I started at Manhattan College. I was the registered dietitian there for about a year. I really had this huge desire to work with college athletes at the time. I still do love that population. They're like the most motivated people ever. And that was just really my big desire at that time. In the off time, like I was working there full time, but I was actually working part time with another registered dietitian who's actually a naturopath doctor as well. And she hired me after the registered dietetic internship that I did a rotation with her. And she just like completely shifted my mindset into a different way of dietetics. She talked more about, supplementation and exercise and stress and sleep and specialty testing and everything that I wanted to learn about in school, but didn't. And she just completely shifted my mindset. And I was like, this is what I want. I want to work with her. I want to do this. And so funny enough, during a client session I had with her, one of her clients was talking about this functional medicine practice called Parsley Health. And this was very new at the time. This was, a bunch of years ago. But as soon as she talked about it, I was like, wait, what is this company? And I went and I researched it prior to or after I had the conversation with her, mainly to be a member. I wanted to join myself because I had, a ton of health issues that I wanted to be resolved. And of course, you can't fix your own stuff. But I was researching and I was like, wait, they're hiring. Let me put my name in the game, even though I wasn't really looking for another job. But long story short, I ended up getting that job and making the switch to functional medicine. And I worked there for a little bit over 4 years until I had my son last February. So it was amazing. I learned so much about functional medicine and wellness and just a different way of viewing dietetics. So yes, I'm a registered dietitian, but I consider myself, a functional medicine practitioner as well.
And, how would you describe functional medicine? Because I think it can be described in so many different ways, but really, to what you do, because, and we can get into this now or later, but there's so many things that are coming out that so many registered dietitians on Instagram are saying things like cereal is healthy for you, drink Coke, because they're being paid by these people. So really kind of how are you different? What is functional medicine? And, we could talk about that for 10 hours, but really just the biggest differences between how you, specialize, how you treat your patients compared to what RDs mostly are taught in school, like a lot of other providers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think there are so many fantastic dietitians out there too. I'm not knocking the entire profession. However, in school, a lot of us are taught, I don't want to call it basic things because it's definitely not basic. It's very nuanced in terms of how we digest nutrients, different nutrients, the pathways, receptors, and definitely how to research, right? We're taught a number of times, different research, classes. We take a ton of different research classes. And so it's very much a clinical way of thinking too in dietetic education, especially how it was. They train you to be clinical RDs, how to do TPN and work with renal diseases and everything like that. So they don't really get into how to prevent any of these things. I mean, we're still taught, especially when I was there, weight loss is like calorie in, calorie out deal, right? So it's very much like old school way of thinking. They don't teach supplements. They don't teach tools like fasting, or they go over different diets. Like it's very much like I don't know. It's just different than what I envision functional wellness to be. And it's not a functional wellness education, right? So I think that it is very different. But for me, how I like to practice is I like to think of the person as an individual, and I'm very much a preventative practitioner. So I like to talk to the patient about their lifestyle and their goals and look at their labs and, take everything into account before I make a recommendation. And I always meet the person where they are, right? So if, they're on a standard American diet, I'm not going to make 1,000 changes all at once, right? That's going to be extremely overwhelming. But yes, I think that I'm also very different than the dietitians you're talking about on Instagram, because I'm not being paid by corporations, nor will I ever be. And I think that's super unfortunate, but it's, you can find that quote unquote sellouts in any profession. It's just unfortunate because in my profession, I think a lot of people look up to dietitians and wellness practitioners to get that good advice. And now they're being sold crap, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I don't think it's just dietetic practice, but I think it's kind of everywhere. So yes, I hope to be different than than those practitioners, for sure.
I think that's what you said. Of course, there's great any type of providers, and there's always going to be bad in whatever you look at. But I just think it's so unfortunate because it's all over Instagram, and people are looking for help, right? And it can be so confusing and overwhelming. And so when it's out there and you don't realize, I think that's why it's so important to research who you work with, and it needs to be based on science and not just because, oh, that seems nice that I can still drink soda every day. It's like, but does that actually make sense? And like you said, any type of medicine, med school, I think you learn like an hour of nutrition your entire time you're in school. So it's just really making sure like you're your biggest advocate and doing research of who you're working with.
Exactly. And I think that the experience has a lot to do with that too, right? Just because you have a social media account doesn't mean that you are an experienced practitioner. So I think, even though we weren't taught what I want to practice or how I practice in school, just like how you brought up doctors, I have a ton of experience in the way that I do want to practice and other practitioners don't. And I think that's the difference too, for sure.
I agree. And in the wellness coach that's taken place all over. And it's, it makes me sad sometimes to read things that people are posting and saying they're a wellness coach because so many people need help, right? And when you need so much help or you don't feel well, sometimes you're just trying, like you're kind of desperate of trying to find help. And sometimes when I'm seeing these people posting things, I'm like, this is not going to help someone, but they think it's going to. So then it just adds on time, money, frustration in your healing journey.
Absolutely. And I think that's there's so many, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but mainly hate, if I'm going to be honest. But I think a lot of it, especially in my profession, it's like, okay, they put this information out there that's supposed to be, for lack of better words, clickbait, and it gets people's attention, but it's not meant for the individual, right? And I think that's why it's so important, like you said, to take the power into your own hands, do your research, look up the practitioners that you want to work with, and you're investing in your health, right? If you take all of your information from these dietitians or wellness coaches or whoever from social media, personal trainers, there's so many people, chiropractors that give nutrition advice, but if you take them from those people and it's not really targeted for you, sure, you might be saving $1 or $2 in that time, but in the long run, probably not, because you're not going to get the help that you need or the resolution that you're after.
And I think it gives a disservice to people like you who are so specialized in what you do, and it's very personalized and it's based on science, because you need wellness. Wellness, nutrition, movement is the foundation of your health. So it's so important to do it the right way. And the right way is going to look different for each person, but based on actual science to help your body and not what's just posted.
Exactly. Couldn't say it better.
Well, we both had our own experiences, so we understand. And I think, kind of diving into how, like you were talking about, you started with college athletes, which I love. I always joke, I wish I was an athlete.
Same. My next life. Yeah.
Exactly. The other day I saw the Cavs, like I was staying in the same hotel as them, and I'm like, gosh, they're just so cool. Like, I wish I was an athlete,
And college athletes, for sure. I mean, they're so motivated and driven. And it's so inspiring to see and to work with. But even after, I feel like, and this is a whole nother topic, but I could go into depth on this, but I feel like they're so neglected afterwards, after they're no longer an athlete anymore. And those people need help tremendously, just like, kind of reinventing themselves and figuring out what they're going to do next. So I love that population.
Agreed. Like the mental aspect that you're just talking about. And that's why, my love for Nick Saban, but that's why he is so, like, he wants to prep the athlete for life after, because most college athletes won't go pro, but their whole identity has been in sports, right? So how can you prep them? And two, like, talk about the nutrition aspect. Like freshman year, they need to gain weight. Like, that is their number one goal. So they're feeding them anything and everything. But when they're out, they don't need to be eating that same thing. And then they're so unhealthy after, it's so hard on their bones when they've, there's many things.
Absolutely. Yeah. They go from working with personal trainers day in and day out, having 3 days, and then all of a sudden they can't get off the couch, right? Or they're going to their 9 to 5 and they're sitting in front of a computer screen and their bodies are completely different. So yes, it's a very fascinating clientele for sure.
There's an ESPN special that was a couple years ago, and it was looking at their freshman year O-line's diet.
No, but I'll have to go back.
It is insane. Like, just the amount of food that they're just trying to get, and it's everything and anything. So then, let alone 4 years later, you're going to a 9 to 5. Your poor body doesn't know what to do.
Absolutely. And you're probably medically obese at that point, right? Because you've been eating all this processed food. So it's such a fascinating client, like a diverse topic to talk about. But I love working with college athletes. So yes, that was my original. And I still love working with that population. But now I think it's more broad. I love.
And when you look at the athletes that have the longevity, it's because they put wellness in their focus, right? The nutrition, the stretching, the bands,
mindfulness, meditation. Yes, all of it.
Well, guys, it's a whole thing. It's not just showing up on a field, which I think so many people think about sports. Absolutely not. There's so many pieces that go into it.
There's so much that goes into it. Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with your clients, what does your first time you meet with them, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, great question. So I love to learn everything and anything that I can about the client. And typically what will happen before I even meet with the person is one of two things, or both. I'll either send them extensive questionnaire to learn a little bit more about them before meeting them. Or I'll have an initial kind of consult with them. So a 15-minute brief discussion about what they're looking for, if we're a good fit. And then if all things, if they want to continue to work together, we'll have our initial session and I'll learn everything. We dive into everything from what they're eating to supplements to how they're going to the bathroom to how many kids they have, what their day in and day out looks like, their job. I want to know everything, because if I make recommendations and it doesn't work for your life, you're not going to do them. You're not going to do them point blank, right? And my job is to get you to feel better and to give you the knowledge to feel better, right? And the tools. And it won't work unless I know the ins and outs of your day, right? So yes, we talk about, supplements, sleep, stress, all of it, and try to optimize on all fronts. really.
And I think the biggest thing you kind of touched on earlier and just now too, but you want it to make a lifestyle, right? So that's why you want to like add in, take out things little by little so that you're not so overwhelmed by it and then you just give up, because we can talk about this forever, but food is medicine. It's either going to hurt you or help you. And like once you realize like what makes my DNA, what makes my cells, and it's like, oh, it's the food I'm eating. So then why would you want to eat the Cheetos, right? And so it's just that education piece, I think, so big, and then taking it piece by piece.
Agreed. I mean, I always say this, that if I'm doing my job effectively, like eventually people won't need me, right? Because I'm giving them the education and the tools that I know to help them. And so the biggest compliment that I could get is someone being like, I got this, I can do this. Thank you for the information and, the education. Because I do think it relates back to what we were just talking about before. There's an overload of information, but a lot of it isn't personalized. It isn't going to work for every single person. So I think that that's what the draw is to working with someone like me, a different, an individualized practitioner that can really give the lifestyle changes and the education piece behind it.
Yeah. And like personalized, because of course I believe there's certain nutrition, health things that should be across the board, like you should have in your life. But it's also nutrition is so personalized. And I think too, sometimes people have to think like, okay, how does that make me feel? Like just because someone told me that I only need to eat pea protein, let's just take pea protein, but like if I eat it, I get a stomach ache, then don't eat it, So it's like your body. And it's so important, like doing tests or what have you. Like I found out I can't eat spinach and kale. And I was like, I should have known because every time I ate it, I didn't feel well. But on paper, it's healthy.
But you don't think about it, right? Because it's like, okay, someone tells you something's good and you believe them and then you run with it, right? So think about how long the low fat diet trend went on for, because that was what was told was healthy. But now we know much more, right? But there's still people that believe it.
Yes. And then we're seeing all the ramifications from the people, especially women who are on the low fat diet.
Absolutely. So I think it's just becoming aware, but also having that education piece too, and someone to listen to. I think that's like one of the biggest listen to you, right? That one of the biggest draws of working with a practitioner, individual practitioner, is having somebody to actually listen to what you're going through. I can't tell you like how many times I've been thanked just for listening, and it makes me so sad because there aren't people to listen. There really aren't. Yes, you can go to a therapist, you can go to your hairdresser or whatever, but in terms of like your actual physical health, or it's really hard to find people to listen to you and give you sound, good information and advice. So yeah, I feel like it's a privilege and an honor to do this work, but it also makes me so sad that there's not more people like doctors to listen, about health concerns.
Exactly. And I was at a conference this weekend and someone was talking about their mental health journey and like their experience through it. And they talked nothing about exercise, nothing about food, and that the doctor they went to gave them 5 different medications, and that was their healing story. And of course, medication always has a time and place, like never saying that. But it was just so sad and eye opening because we're in this space all the time. I was like, how is movement and nutrition not even part of this conversation? It was and very eye opening. It's like, this is why we're here, because the conversation needs to get bigger and bigger, and healthcare needs to change. And it's just going to take one conversation after another, because healthcare is meant to have a conversation and figure out what's going on. And now it's just 10-minute appointments of a Band-Aid.
Absolutely. It makes me so sad, but you're right. I think it is evolving and the conversation is becoming bigger and louder. So we can just keep doing our parts and, be there for as many patients as we can.
Right. Especially when it's like, okay, the US pays the most amount in healthcare, has the sickest population, has the highest rates of chronic diseases, cancers from literally like infants to it, throughout adulthood. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. And you need to start questioning and look at why.
Exactly. The root cause, right? And I think that that's what we're trying to do. And I feel like a lot of practitioners are trying to do that now in companies. So we just have to collectively keep working towards this common goal for sure.
Exactly. And just the education piece and doing your own research. I think it can be you have to, as an adult, you need to do your own research, right? And it's you if you want to feel better, like you've got to take that responsibility. And I think one of the best places to start is just like reading a food label and also knowing the ingredients that are allowed in the US are not allowed in most other countries. And then you look at the diseases we have in the US compared to the other countries that don't have these chemicals in their food. Can start that conversation, start that research.
Totally. And it's not even just our food, right? It's our nail polish, it's our lipstick, it's our cleaning supplies, it's the air fresheners, it's, so many things that we come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. I was just reading, I listened to a podcast, now I can't even remember which doctor it was, but they were talking about the chemicals in nail polish and how they're huge hormone disruptors. And when you think back, like the first time you got your nails done, I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. These little girls are being, soaked in nail polish and hormone disruptive chemicals. And it makes me so sad. I feel like the conversation, like you said, just needs to be there, and the education piece, because many people don't understand that it's well beyond our food system too, is the dangers. The dangers are.
Again, like you need to pay attention to what's going on, because that's the way like you're going to change it. And once you start taking out like toxic things, you feel better. And then once, like say, like scented candles, you don't realize how much is bothering you. You take it away and then you have a fragrance, you're going to get a headache. And like anytime you have a symptom, like your body's trying to tell you something.
Exactly. Going back to your, spinach story. Exactly. Right. Your body was trying to tell you something. And when you finally listened, now you feel better. Right. But when you have them, same with me and onions. When I eat onions, even though I love them, when I eat them, I feel like crap. And it was my body's way of saying, hey, Brit, maybe this isn't the best for you, right? So I think you're absolutely right. When you take them away and you start detoxing, which happens, it could take years to really, really clean up your diet, your lifestyle choices, right? And that goes back to having somebody coach you through this, because it does take a really long time, and it's not supposed to be overwhelming. It's supposed to be a gradual, detox, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great point, because we're in such a society that wants a quick fix. But you have to understand, and you can talk more to this, that if you want to fully heal, you have to have patience and also understand you're going to have peaks and valleys of the healing, but it's going to take time. And depending how much toxins in your body, it's going to take longer.
I think that the main word that I always love to put into everyone's head is consistency, right? It's hard. It's hard to stay consistent day after day, month after month, year after year, but that is what you need to do to feel your very best, right? And to heal. And I think that you're right. Most people want that quick fix. Most people want that pill or injection, right? And maybe they help, but at the end of the day, you need to make these lifestyle changes every single day consistently. And eventually it won't feel hard. It's going to feel like your life, right? And that's the goal. But initially, it's going to feel more challenging than a crash diet or, a magic pill. So absolutely agreed.
And it's like, don't you want to feel better? Like, that's my biggest thing. It's like, don't you want to feel better? Like a few years ago, I found out that I had celiac, so I don't eat gluten. And people will say, like, don't you miss it? I'm like, oh, miss having migraines every day, miss feeling terrible? Like, absolutely not. But I think we're in just like such a society like that it's normal to feel like not okay. And it's like, no, like you're supposed to feel good every day.
My grandma said, I come from a very, very big Italian family, and my grandma says the same thing about me and garlic. I can't eat garlic either. It's the garlic and onions, right? So and she'll be like, oh, I'm so sad for you that you can't have it. And I'm like, Meme, it still tastes amazing. I just don't need all the garlic because I don't miss feeling that way. I don't miss feeling like my stomach was so bloated and huge and inflamed. That wasn't a comfortable feeling for me. So I'm glad to give up garlic, right? So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it comes down to how do you want to feel? And another part of it is I feel like going back to what you were saying before about like taking out the candles, right? A lot of people don't actually notice that they feel poorly when they have these things in their diets or in their life. And then when they finally remove that thing and they feel so much better, it's like, wait a second, what? You just become more aware, right? The more that you learn, the more that you become more in tune with yourself and you have these tools to go off of. So yeah, I think it's so interesting because most people don't feel badly, I feel, because they don't actually understand what it's like to feel good, if that makes sense.
Exactly. I feel like they don't realize what it feels to be good, especially because we're surrounded by all people that aren't feeling well. And two, I feel like we're so out of tune of our bodies, like we're not listening. So then once you start listening and then you're aware and then you start removing things and feeling better and then you come into contact with it, then you really, sometimes I feel like I'm way too aware and I'm like, I'm so thankful for that. But then also I'm like, it's very unfortunate if I get in an Uber, I'm like, I know I'm going to get a headache.
I think we were having this conversation about like hoping that Uber has a selection for no sense in the car. Please, please.
Add it to your app, no sense in the cars.
Oh my gosh. Because I mean, who wants to get in a car and feel like crap immediately? Nobody. Yes, please, Uber.
And two, about like the quick fixes. It's like, one, I hope you want to feel better as a person, right? Because then that affects you, everything else. But two, like say, take most chronic diseases, illnesses, cancers, you can prevent, or you can try to prevent as much as possible. So it's like, why would you not want to? And then talking about like spending money, you're going to spend money on your health, whether it to be feel good, not be sick, or the illness is always so much more expensive in every respect, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think of wellness almost as like money, right? Like you want, yeah, absolutely, to invest now so you don't have to suffer later and invest more when you actually are sick. So yes, huge point.
And you mentioned when you first meet with your clients that you ask about how do they go to the bathroom. So can we, kind of touch on that? Why is that so important?
Oh, I think gut health is like everything. I think the gut seriously controls everything from, our mood to different inflammation, like joint pains, all of it. So yes, I love to talk about poop. And I talk about it a lot with my clients and with my friends and my husband too. So, but I think it's really important. Yeah, it's really important to know, because if you are going multiple times a day and it's loose, that's important. If you go once every 3 days, that's also important to know. How I, recommend different supplements or protocols is based off a lot, in part due to your health of your gut and your microbiome. And I think that a lot of times our microbiome is stripped from these great bacteria, and bad bacteria is overgrown, and it can lead to a host of problems. I know myself, like I went through, and this is how we originally connected, was our common SIBO journeys. Yes, and I think that it is, and both of us had similar symptoms, but also different too. I mean, I had extremely bad acne because of my gut. Right. And I spent years and years and years going to dermatologists and being put on medication and all these different things. I was probably just making it worse, to be honest. But at the time, I didn't know any better and nothing was helping. And every time I went to a doctor or dermatologist, they'd be like, well, are you eating dairy? I'm like, okay, I don't think that's the problem. Yeah, like I don't think that's the problem. But sure, are you on birth control? And I'm at the time like, yeah. And so they were like, all right, well, maybe it's not that. It's probably not that. And so it was like a host of guessing. And I finally did a stool test and a SIBO test, and it revealed that I had SIBO. And as soon as I fixed that, my acne cleared. It was crazy. It was like overnight. And so I think, asking about your bathroom habits is something that many doctors don't do, but I think it can absolutely shine light on different things that are going on internally that you need to address to solve symptoms that are external too.
Exactly. And, if you're not going to the bathroom, all the toxins are staying in your body and just recirculating. And I don't think people realize that. That's why it's odd. Like, gut health is number one. Your gut is literally connected to everything. And realizing, like, if you are not going to the bathroom, obviously it's showing there's many things that are going on, but just to know that the toxins are literally staying in your body and recirculating.
100%. I remember my doctor at Parsley would call me the accumulator because everything was just like recirculating in my body because I would not go to the bathroom, right? And everything just kept recirculating. She was like, we got to get it out of you, like, somehow. Yeah. So I think that it is. I mean, it's a huge topic and it's definitely a point of interest for me. So yes, love the poop talks for sure.
Life-changing. So kind of jumping into, your life and wellness, because I think the best providers, the best people in general, right, actually like live what you preach and you believe in. So, what does wellness look like for you, your family, and what are some non-negotiables?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a ton of non-negotiables, so I'll get to that in a second. It is definitely. But I think wellness to me really looks like becoming aware of and then making those choices every single day that lead to a more vibrant and fulfilled life, right? Again, the consistency. I always think about, the term healthy. And I think that when we think of healthy, it really relates to like mentally and physically healthy, which of course, super important. But wellness, I feel like encompasses so much more than that, right? It's emotional, it's spiritual, it's environmental, social. So, and then of course, mental and physical as well, health. So I think, for me and my family, I love to make these choices that benefit and optimize all areas of health, not just physical and mental. So, yeah, I feel like that's what wellness looks like to me. And then some of my non-negotiables. So I'll start off with some of the easy ones. No, they're all easy. But big glass of water first thing in the morning, absolutely, without a doubt, not negotiable. My probiotic and magnesium are absolutely gut health, like we said. My non-negotiables. I definitely take more supplements than that, but if I was to just have to pick two, those would be the end all be all for me. I was talking about before we got on the call, but spending some time with my dog is definitely a non-negotiable. Ever since having my son, I feel like my dog, who's my firstborn, hasn't gotten as much of attention, but even just a 5-minute cuddle session with Gouda, like literally just shifts my mood.
Dogs are the best.
Emotionally, for sure. He is my rock. I love him so much. And I think like the last one that I will touch on might sound a little silly to some people, but when I walk alone, and I do this a lot because I live in a walking city, I love to walk in silence. So no headphones, no phone, nothing. It is my meditation. For me personally, just sitting down and meditating like we typically view meditation doesn't really do it for me. I'll be honest. I will coach people through it.
Oh, this is why reflections got it. Yeah.
And it's almost like I equate it to, when you get in the shower and you can just have like this giant mental or emotional release. Yeah.
Because no one's around you, like your phone's not going to ring. Like, why you don't have your phone in the shower? But yes, you just know that there's no distractions.
And to me, like really observing my surroundings is one of the best I don't know, like emotional releases I can have. It is so grounding for me. So I absolutely love it. And I know it's different because I feel like we're all really huge consumers these days. And so every 5 seconds spare that we have to listen to a podcast or, call our friend or whatever. And that's amazing. I love all those things too. But yeah, for me, I don't know, that walking alone is just in like complete silence is one of my non-negotiables. So yeah, you won't find me on my phone when I'm when I'm walking, for sure.
I love that. I mean, most days I'm driving home from work, I'm in silence on the way home. I love silence, and we probably could do a whole podcast on silence, but I think talking about like mental health and being mentally strong is that you should be able to sit alone in silence, and it's so needed.
It's so nice. I absolutely love it. And of course, it's not going to be for everybody, right? That alone. But I agree with you. I think there is something so powerful about being able to sit in your own silence. And then when you're out in nature too, just observing like the sounds, the smells, it's all very meditative, right? So yeah, I get this huge high from it. I don't know. It's one of my things.
I love that. I love that your definition of wellness is being aware of and then making changes for a vibrant life, because I've probably repeated this 10 times on the podcast, but it's just like so many people are sick in different ways, right? And it's just so sad because making changes, you can really feel so much better, and that can impact so many different things. And you have one life, and it's like, what do you want to make of it? And just knowing that people know that they can make those changes. And it's not hard. It might seem hard, but just do it little by little. And once you start feeling better, you're like, wait, or like thinking better or wanting to go for a walk. You're like, hey, this is who I used to be. And I think sometimes we forget that.
Absolutely. It's a positive feedback loop, right? When you start feeling a little bit better, it motivates you to feel even more better and become more aware and ask more questions and do more research. So yes, it's just that first step.
Your body is very smart and wants to feel good, but it's all the toxins going into the bucket can, disrupt that.
Absolutely.
What about movement?
Oh yes, definitely. Thank you. I forgot about that one. Yes. Some sort of movement, absolutely every day. And for me, and this was a big shift after having my son Lincoln. Before having him, it was very much like I have to do some sort of class or weight training activity at the gym or something where it was like I was actually sweating. Now my life looks a little bit differently because I don't have as much time as I did prior to. So I reconfigured my wellness, my goal for movement, and it's definitely more just like some sort of movement. So if that means a walk with Lincoln, bet your butt we're going to walk a little bit longer so I can get a few more steps in. But it's some sort of movement. So yoga class, weight training, walk with Lincoln, something definitely, but daily for sure. And I think it goes back to just how important my gut health is. And I think gut health is for everybody and mental well-being. So some sort of movement, absolutely. It just makes me a better human. It makes most people a better human. Yeah.
It does. I always joke, but I'm like, if everyone just worked out in whatever that looks like, right? We're all going to be different places. The world would be a better place. Like I'm like, I don't know how I would function if I didn't work out in the morning to set up your day, because your body needs it. All part of your body needs movement.
It needs it. And I always think back into like Elle Woods when she was like, happy people work out, right? But it's true. It really does. Like if you're upset, go on a walk, go work out, right? If you need to clear your head, have some energy, do it. It really helps.
And how many research papers show that? Like the endorphin, serotonin, like is real. Like is real.
And I often start with movement as like a place to get in, because most people do have 30 minutes to go for a walk or 30 minutes to turn on their TV and do a yoga class or, Peloton or whatever it is. And we are so fortunate now that there are so many platforms to get movement in. So if you don't want to do it by yourself, or if you're not motivated by yourself, there's so many different opportunities out there. So I find that movement, and thank you for bringing that up because I forgot about it to talk about it, but I think it is such a great place to start. wellness journeys. It was where I started for sure. I mean, I was always interested in nutrition, but it wasn't until I really got into fitness that I kind of put two and two together and saw that how eating well and exercise were so related and connected and really fed off of each other. Right. And it kind of spurred into a whole life change for me.
Right. And even like with, say, exercise, the discipline that comes with it, and then the achievement of doing it, and then like building the confidence. It's just goes into the rest of your day.
Absolutely. Yes.
Any foods that you're like, I need in my day, or that you really try to avoid?
Yeah, that's a great question. I find that I'm not someone who's going to be like, absolutely not to many things. However, there are a few things where I'm like, don't love that. I'm mainly sugar alcohols, just because I know how disruptive they are to the gut microbiome in general. So you won't find me having things with sugar alcohols in them. But for things that I actually need, I would say on a daily basis, there isn't something where I'm like, I have to eat this every single day. I think in the past, I was very much like that. I had like food rules and things like that. But now I feel very much like I know what my body craves and very much know what feels good for me. So I try to eat those things, right? Like eat a lot of eggs, a lot of seafood, a lot of leafy greens. I'm healthy fats. I am a nut and avocado-aholic, I believe. And so, yeah, I would say just really my non-negotiable is sticking to the things that make me feel good. I don't have gluten because I know how terrible it feels when I eat it. I'm not celiac, but I definitely am gluten intolerant, and I've done multiple testing to show that I am. But yeah, so I would say staying away from things that don't make me feel good, gluten, onions, garlic, and staying to the things that do make me feel well.
Focusing like on whole foods.
Exactly.
I think it shows like you're like, I used to be more specific and now I know what my body needs. I think that's like a perfect overview of healing, right? Because sometimes it's easy more strict, and then you kind of can feel your body and your body's healing. And I think that's just like a perfect example, just showing like give your body grace. Is gonna, take time to heal, but then like you said, it's just part of your everyday.
Part of your everyday, right? And yeah, sometimes things slip even still, right? Like I'll be out to dinner and I don't know, gluten sneaks into my meal, or garlic, which is very common to cook with, right? And you just roll with it. You take, the things, and yeah, you might not feel your best, but you have different supplements or the knowledge or the things that you do, peppermint tea or whatever it is that makes you feel better, post ingesting of something that doesn't make you feel great. But I love what you just said. I think that it is so true. You have to give yourself grace, and, healing is a long process, but it's absolutely possible.
And it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
The best thing, because I feel way more free in terms of my restrictions, my mental clarity, my mental health. I'm just a lot more, confident. And I think that is one of the best outcomes that I could give my patients as well, is that confidence, right? In making their decisions daily, time and time again.
Yep. Exactly. Maybe one day, like we'll go through our stories, but because people probably would have never known, because we're kind of quiet. I don't know about that, but like we were both very sick and have put in the time, the money, if you want to talk about money, to heal. And I'm so thankful because, like you said, the confidence, and it's just like you have your life back again.
Absolutely. And I 100%. I think that we should absolutely discuss one day for sure. I often say that, like, especially digestive issues, I feel like they're like the hidden diseases, right? Many people wouldn't know it from looking at you, what you experienced and what you went through. But yes, you took the time and you put the power in your own hands, right? And yeah, you invested, you researched, you learned, and now you have the confidence to live your life at its most optimal self.
100%. Yeah. Well, I can talk to you forever about this. I'm excited to have more ideas of what we could put on these podcasts. So let's finish with some quick takes. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Guessing. Sunrise or sunset?
Oh, sunset. Love a sunset.
Running or walking?
Walking.
Strength training or yoga?
Strength training all the way.
Well, thank you. This was such a great conversation and looking forward to so many more.
Me too. I can't wait. Thank you.
This has been a production of Optimal Bio. Optimal Bio is CEO Tyler Brannon, podcast host and partner Jim Baker, medical director Greg Brannon, production assistance by Core Media, Beth Grabencourt, administrator, Kevin Duthu, executive producer. The podcast can be found on our website, optimalbio.com, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our theme song is Sunwave by Paradiso, provided by Epidemic Sound.